Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, for some, shopping, excess food and enjoying TV series has become the new Ramadan. So have people lost the true meaning of the holiest Muslim month? So we asked you, our TV audience, our online community, to help us get this show ready. What happened, Malika Bilal?
They delivered.
Nice.
What did they ever? So we asked for examples of ways they think that the month may have been commercialized.
Right.
This is just a little taste of a couple that have been sent in. Ruslan tweeted us this. It's a BMW ad. It says, "The best in the best of months," an ad for a very expensive car. Here's one more. This is on Twitter. Nazira tweets in, "It won't just be about preparing for iftar. That's the meal to break the fast. It's these IKEA dinnerware that complete Ramadan." And she links to this IKEA Malaysia ad.
Okay.
So those are a couple examples. We want you to share your own for those of you at home. Join us in this conversation with hashtag AJStream.
Joining us in our studio, we have Shahed Amanullah, and Shahed is the CEO of Launch Posse. That's a startup that helps people turn ideas into reality. Shahed, it's great to have you here.
Wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be here. And you know, I've had really conflicting opinions about this. I did write an article where I was expressing some of my thoughts about how it is getting commercialized.
Right.
But I've been at the heart of this too. I do market
You're
research.
a culprit. We're going to hear about that
I'm
in
a
just
culprit,
a minute.
and so this is kind of my mea culpa. I've helped to accelerate this, and I think there's two reasons why this has happened. I think one is that
Shahed,
yes.
can I finish the beginning of the show and then we'll come back to you?
Go for it.
All right, you can tell he's trying to get this off of his chest. Hold on to it for just a moment, because I'm going to tell our audience that if you have a story you'd like to see us discuss on the stream, let us know. Really easy to do. You can go to Google Plus and tell us about your idea, and you can scroll down here. There's so many places for you to add your ideas, your suggestions, and it might actually end up in the stream.
Hey, I'm Tawfiq Dibi. I'm a Dutch Moroccan, a former member of parliament, and I'm in the stream.
So for Muslims, Ramadan is meant to be a month of fasting, prayer and self-reflection. For some though, it's turned into a season of consumerism, television and indulgence. Breaking off the fast with an iftar dinner in some cases has become the embodiment of excess as piles of food flood dinner tables. Then, after this feast, you can even go on an all-night shopping spree as many stores stay open until dawn. But it's not just retailers taking advantage of the month. Take a look at this Lipton ad.
When Ramadan brings us together and you spread the smile with the first cup, uplift your mood with Lipton. From iftar to suhoor, a Lipton for every mood to brighten up Ramadan nights.
So are you uplifted? Have Muslims lost the meaning of their holiest month? Is Ramadan too commercialized? With us to talk about this in California, we have Jamala Siddiqui. She's a designer and founder of Modern Eid. That's an online retail company for holiday goods and party wear. In Dubai, Wafa Farid Fenton is a senior copywriter at a large advertising company. And Iman Suhaib Webb joins us from Oklahoma. So it's great to have you all here in the stream. So Shahed, I know you are raring to go. Let's start. What should we start with? Okay, stories of excess during Ramadan. What's your best example?
Well, I think the idea that people have turned in iftar, and I've told you what my kind of favorite one was, a small one, but they've turned them into very large events. They've turned them into events that are meant to bring big communities together, to maybe promote certain products and services, to try to express identity in a macro level. And this can get so big and so time consuming that it takes the entire evening. And I think that is something that, I mean, people revel in it for very positive reasons, but I think we need to take a step back and realize, like, if this is going to take up the whole month, then what do we have left?
Wafa, see, Shahed is sitting here in the US, so that's a US experience. But for you, you're sitting in the Middle East. What is it like? If I was observing Ramadan right now, what would I see that would be commercial?
Pretty much the same thing, I'd say. Lavish iftars, very shopping malls, full of people, extremely crowded. Ramadan campaigns everywhere. Pretty much the same thing. TV shows, a lot of TV shows, which are, some of them are good, of course. Most of them are good. But,
what's your favorite one? What's your favorite one this Ramadan? TV show?
I'm not watching TV this Ramadan. I barely have time. This is my first.
Okay, we believe you.
I'm honestly not. Just watching my own series.
All right, let me share with you a couple of ads on my laptop. So we've got the DKNY Ramadan ad, and they say it's a Ramadan summer. Then let me just see what Burger King are up to. Ramadan Kareem, we wishing you a happy Ramadan there if you're going to Burger King. And this one, I love this one. This is where Photoshop was meant to be, with Oreo and a glass of milk and a crescent moon there with a little bit of milk just seductively dripping off your Oreo biscuit. Imam, is this horrifying you, what we're showing you right now?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not really.
Because?
I actually kind of like it in a way. I mean, I think there's definitely the concern of opulence, but when you give the market the power to define you either way, whether positively or negatively, then you've given the market power. So I don't think the market needs to be necessarily a means by how we measure ourselves, if that makes sense. But as a father, I love having ads for my children to see, wow, like Islam is out there. Islam is something powerful. The lip in that I thought was very beautiful. It, really brought together a lot of our values. So I think we can be constructively critical, but I think at the same time, there's a lot of benefit to be had in that.
Interesting.
Well, speaking of being constructively critical, Shahid, there's a couple of people online that have shared their own constructive criticism. So Son of Sochi tweets in, fasting for a day and then having a huge feast and Instagramming it defeats the purpose of Ramadan and the personal struggle. Another person sent us this video comment, and this kind of goes in line to what we heard a little bit earlier about the huge feast. So have a listen to this.
I have observed those very lavish and expensive iftar buffet tents that most of the economically developed Islamic countries have, and that is obviously a mark of commercialism, and it's also contrary to the spirit of Islam, because you are enclosing yourself and having food with similar rich people and not being charitable, which is something that this month of Ramadan propagates and encourages people to do.
So can you talk about that? And especially in the Middle East, for those who aren't aware, there are huge tents that are erected this month.
Absolutely.
And they are filled with goodies.
Absolutely. I mean, it's become a very public event, and again, there's something good in it. We have to remember that this is not a good or bad thing. I think there are
Why is it not a good or bad thing?
Because there's aspects of the commercialization that's a part of identity expression, and especially.
What do you mean by that? So let me just say, like, I'm looking at this Oreo.
Yes.
How is that part of my identity expression?
Keep in mind the environment that Muslims have been in the last 20 years. We've set altars of bad news, the post 9/11 world, and to see positive expressions that show a different side, a side that's more normal, a side that's more human, is appealing to us.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
Right.
But it can go overboard.
Yeah.
If I could chime in on that. If I could chime in, and that's what I was expressing more so is from as a minority, a religious community in America. I think from my child, and even for myself, to see us at a broader level, at a mainstream level, so to speak, is very empowering, especially for younger people. To see, like, Burger King has an ad for Islam about Ramadan. The Oreo ad, which I think is incredibly dope, is about Ramadan. I think that's empowering, but it also comes with certain responsibilities. Maybe we can talk about later on.
Sure. What are the responsibilities?
Can I say something here?
Yeah, go ahead, Wafa.
I honestly, I want to clear up something. As a person from the advertising industry, I would definitely say that brands don't take random decisions, and there's a lot of insight and there's a lot of research and planning and strategy that goes into any campaign. Every word is thought of, designs, everything. Brands just want to deliver what the consumers actually respond to. So if there are emotions such as greed and gluttony and the desire to have iftars or extravagant outfits for those iftars, if that actually exists anyways, why wouldn't a brand ride that wave? That's what I feel.
Wow, so all these lovely sort of soft, gooey feelings that maybe Shahid and maybe Imam are feeling, you're just like, well, this is great business for us. Is that what you're saying?
It's not for me, but for, let's say, if I was a ketchup brand, and I know that all these samosas and sambusaks in Arabic are being consumed in Ramadan, it's not a part of the religion, it's just become a part of the culture for some reason, and all these samosas are being consumed, and I'm a ketchup brand, I know the Muslims are consuming so much ketchup in this month. And if I'm selling ketchup, I'll be like, hey, you're having ketchup anyways, might as well have my ketchup. It's good.
And then put a little Ramadan label on, and then you're good, right? Okay, let me, like, if anybody who's observing Ramadan right now and you're fasting, I apologize because I'm about to show you an ad. Now, if you're fasting, you know, from sun up to sunset, you can't actually eat. But when you get to sunset, that's the moment that you can tuck into. That's the only piece of knowledge you need to see this ad. It's from Nando's, and I'm going to start it 15 seconds in because I don't think you'll be able to bear it any longer. Here we go. Okay, doesn't that just want you to have a nice juicy Nando's piece of chicken?
Actually, I will say that I love that ad.
Right.
But there are others who are poking some holes in some of these ads. So this one's from Aisha, and she says, she mentions the DKNY campaign that you mentioned a little bit earlier. She says this mostly white fashion industry literally used hadith sayings of the Prophet to market exorbitantly priced luxury clothing. She sees a problem with that. Jumana, we have this tweet though from someone who says, perhaps a little commercialization would normalize Ramadan and Muslim holidays with other holidays observed in the U.S. Do you agree with that, Jumana?
Absolutely. Well, I do. I mean, I don't think it's particularly a holiday that needs to be normalized in a sense, but I do think that there is some mystery around it, from non-Muslims. So by bringing it out onto the forefront, by actually educating people about what it is, by saying, you know, this is what happens during Ramadan, this is Eid, this is how Muslims celebrate, I think it demystifies it and actually helps bring a greater understanding. So I only see it as a positive thing.
See, Jumana, you have a whole line of Eid Ramadan cards. So this is your business. Have a look at Jumana's website here on my laptop. So I'm going to say you would say that anyway, because this is a great time of year for you. You make a lot of money.
Well, I mean, it was the impetus of actually starting the company. It's, you know, as growing up, we didn't celebrate Ramadan in the sense where we hung up decorations or did things like that around Eid. But as I got older and now I have children, I wanted to instill a sense of pride about their own holidays within them. And so that's really why I started it. It's a generation that kind of has a modern aesthetic that loves to celebrate in a certain way. And I wanted it to kind of happen in a way that was clean and modern, but also just so that my kids, for example, had something to do during Ramadan, that they built that pride. And while they may be too young to understand the spiritual significance about it, it could at least help them generate that pride. So when they get older enough to understand it, they do understand it, and they're proud to be Muslims.
Well, Wafa, I want you to have a look at what someone shared with us. This is from Sheikh on Twitter. He says, I see a Ramadan collection for a baby clothes brand. What is Ramadan doing here? And so he shows this picture, and he says it's a bit futile to mention Ramadan in this baby shop unveils elegant and trendy Ramadan collection. And there's a little bit of a frilly dress there. So the question for you, Wafa, is from Nomad, who says, do we find it okay when Muslims commercialize it versus Western companies? Do you think there's a difference at all?
I don't think there's any difference. I think there's a very fine line between celebrating the month with your consumers and making it religious. I don't think products or brands should cross that line and promote themselves or like associate themselves with the religion. Wishing your consumers saying Happy Ramadan or Ramadan Kareem is completely fine. In fact, nowadays, if you don't do that, consumers might look at their brand as an arrogant or insensitive brand. I mean, especially in the Middle East here, it's like, why are you silent? Everyone's like, you know, wishing everyone Ramadan Kareem. So why aren't you speaking up?
I do think
yes, but that Nando's ad was very interesting. I have never seen that one before. And I think that's the line where that's being crossed over there.
No, I
think for a lot of us though, living in, like, you know, for us living here in the States, maybe not in the Middle East, but living in the States, we don't get many brands or retailers actually recognizing Ramadan. So recently I was able to team up with local Macy's in Orange County in California just to bring displays into their store that say Happy Ramadan, and the reaction from the community was huge. Not because you need to have your religion or your holiday recognized, but just because it's such a rare occurrence.
Sure, Jemana, let me just show people what happened. People were so excited that this is Macy's South Coast Plaza on the west coast of the United States. This is how excited Muslims were when they went into that Macy's and found that Ramadan was actually recognized and up there. Have a look at my laptop. Okay. Dancing with joy. Macy's knows it's Ramadan. All right, so Shahid, I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, no, I think there is a difference when Muslims are doing this versus others, because Muslims are not an ethnic group or that kind of demographic group. It's a group that's bound together with a certain set of values. And if you have Muslims that are doing the marketing and they incorporate those values into the marketing, I think it's much more authentic and much more closer to the spirit that we are trying to reinforce. Right. So I run a halal restaurant guide called Zabiya.com, and this is the best month for me in terms of my revenue, but I'm also trying to tie it to values that have to do with Ramadan.
So Imam, is it okay to make money because it's Ramadan?
Of course it's okay to make money.
Phew, Shahid is like, phew.
Thank you.
But again, let me kind of comment on some comments I made earlier. I mean, there is no delusion that these people are out to make money. Like, we know that they are out to make money. How do we turn that in our advantage? So I think, for example, the DKNY ads, we could talk about the construction of beauty and how we don't necessarily want Muslims to be subjected to a Western construction of beauty. I think that's very unhealthy. So we're now in that conversation at that level. That's healthy.
Right.
Sustainability. Are we buying products that are made through fair trade? Are people being exploited? Were there sweatshops involved? As Muslims, those are conversations that are important to us we can have with these corporations.
So Imam, nobody's going to see that Nando's ad and go, okay, let me just check what Nando's are doing right now. They either just find it quite amusing or they get hungry just watching it.
Yeah, definitely, but there are other people who might. So I don't think the entire community will worry about where he got that piece of chicken from. Was it organic? Was it free raised? If I can just finish. And then I think the last point is what Chuck D said of Public Enemy. I like Nike, but wait a minute. The neighborhood plays a part, so let's put some money in it. I think we need to ask these corporations, if you're going to make money from us, then we need to demand responsibility that you give back to a certain community. So I think we have a great opportunity. That's why I was saying earlier that I'm not upset at all. I think this is a long process of great benefit.
Yeah. And there has to be a deeper relationship between the community being marketed to and the producers, so we can make sure that it's not just window dressing, that they actually do abide by some of the values that we're trying to uphold.
Well, I guess the question is, how do you make sure that that happens? So Graham on Twitter says markets will take advantage of Ramadan, as they do with all holidays, but he also says don't forget all the money given to charity this month, and that kind of goes against what Nasihan tweets us. Sadly, the true meaning of Ramadan, she says, and being charitable towards the less fortunate are somehow lost along the way due to commercialism. So Imam Suhaib, I want to knock that over to you. How do you advise people to remember the less fortunate, when they're going without food for so many hours and then feasting themselves? What are ways that you tell people to dedicate their charity?
Well, let me also kind of respond to that last tweet. I don't think it's this or that. I tend to see we always have this like duality when we look at things. In the last 2.5 weeks, the Muslim American community, just in those that I've been involved with, has raised $300,000 for Palestine in like 2.5 weeks. And those were young Muslims who were donating. So I think number one is people in Ramadan. Shahid said his followers go up on Zabiya.com, I believe. My followers on Twitter, on Facebook, go up at least by 20,000 likes in the month of Ramadan. I don't think you really have to encourage people to give, in the sense the Prophet was more generous than Rih al-Mursala, the hadith says, right? So we just have fundraisers. We remind people about sustainability. We talk about long-term community commitment. Ramadan reminds us of our own mortality every morning. We wake up strong. And every evening at sunset, we almost die. We're reminded that we are going to die every single day that we fast. So people are apt to give just by giving them little reminders. I mean, I saw a young Muslim boy who came to the Boston. I'm in Boston, by the way, not Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma, but I'm in Boston. Who came to the mosque here, and he gave $5,000. He was a teenager to Palestine. So I think just giving people opportunities to give in Ramadan, you'll see that happen. And let me say this. If you were to ask most Muslims why they're out shopping at night, I guarantee you many of them are going to say to buy gifts for other people. Because the Prophet said that you will not enter paradise till you love each other, and you will not love each other until you give gifts to each other. So that's all very Ramadan-esque, if you will.
All right, so Wafa, we can't kind of get away from the idea that Ramadan is commercial. It is an opportunity to reach Muslims who are observing and thinking about their faith. So if there's this balance between commercialism and the spiritual part of Ramadan, you as somebody who works in the ad industry, how do you get that balance?
It's pretty tricky. You have to be very careful, especially like I'm a copywriter, so I have to be very careful about the words that I choose. I make sure I don't use words such as God or, you know, reward or something like that. It has to be in tune with the consumer's mood and their level of spirituality. Everyone is, again, anyways, in a very generous mood. They're in a very festive mood as well. Everyone's, you know, hosting a lot of iftar parties. Everyone is going out a lot, etc. So you just have to make sure that you know, say certain things or use certain images that don't offend anyone per se, because you know, I wouldn't personally want a brand telling me to do religious things. I would just like them to be a part of it as a friend.
Okay, Malika.
You know, there's a question here. This is an example that someone sent us from Bangladesh. This is Montasser. He says, in Bangladesh, Robi is giving unlimited SMS and encouraging users to recharge for street children in Ramadan. And he shows this example. So that is one example of someone saying this is how it can work. Absolutely.
And I think that the important takeaway I think we needed to give is that it's important that Muslim consumers don't get dazzled by all the attention that they're getting, and that they start to
so you wouldn't be dancing around the Macy's sign? That would be you.
Well, I mean, no, I think that's something to celebrate, definitely. But I mean, over the long term, you need to be informed consumers and project your values back onto the brands so that they are a reflection of Ramadan. Don't let them define it for you, because I think there's a natural tendency, if someone gives you attention, to just lay back and bask in it.
See, Shahid,
I just got a tweet from someone who said, tell them that we buy gifts for children and the elderly. You know, most of the gifts that we buy are for children, for charity, and for the elderly.
Wow.
So there you go.
Okay, Shahid, but I have to say that you are responsible for organising lots of big iftar dinners.
Yes.
One of them actually for the President of the United States.
For the last 3 years, I've been organising the iftars for the State Department, for the Secretary of State.
Right. Are you being hypocritical right now?
No, I freely admit I've been a part of this, and part of what I think has given me pause is that these, I mean, maybe people around the world don't know, but like here in America, and particularly in DC, we have all these public iftars that are being thrown by government offices, and they're more social events for the general community, and the religious aspect is kind of relegated to a side room, and that gives me pause. And again, as someone who's a part of that, I want to kind of pull back from that a little bit and just not forget. Yes, it's great that we're being recognized at a federal level and that people are coming out to celebrate our holidays, but let's take a step back and not lose ourselves in it.
Sure. Our community have been so amazing at sharing their iftar pictures and their pictures of commercialization. What is the last word that maybe we can leave our community with?
I'll actually leave you with two tweets. This first one is from our own stream team. This is Raisa tweeting in, growing up Muslim in the US, it sucked to explain Ramadan to people. So awareness is great, but the massification dilutes its meaning. This next one is out of Chicago. Deanna tweets in, I just bought Ramadan lights at a local grocery store and I was happy to see them being sold there.
Oh, where is that grocery store?
That's in Chicago.
That is amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
There's a hashtag that's going around in the States right now for Ramadan. What is it?
Well, Twitter has this new, what they call a hash flag.
Okay, hashtag.
And if you put hashtag Ramadan, they add a little cute crescent.
You can see
really
it here
adorable.
on my tweet. It's
very
great.
nice. And also hashtag Eid as well.
And hashtag Eid, exactly.
To come in a few days' time.
So that, I have to say, is very affirming.
Oh, very lovely. Okay, so thank you to Shahid and Wafa and Jamala and Imam. It's been great having your company. We are continuing our conversation at stream.aljazeera.com. Come and join us if you can. On the next show, they travelled from Europe to fight in Syria alongside groups like Islamic State. So what do you do with fighters when they head back home? That is our starting point for the next AJ stream. I hope you can make it. And you can also tweet us on that issue as well at hashtag AJstream. Now the post show is about to start at stream.aljazeera.com and we will see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to the Streams Online Post Show. We're continuing our discussion on the commercialization of Ramadan. I'm going to pick up with a community tweet. Is that okay, Malika?
You go for it.
I have one myself. All right, this is Ade, and he tweeted to Malika into the stream an example of commercialization. So this is playing in Nigeria. Have a look at this via Bournvita.
Are you sure you and your family have been fasting? This one, you are all still looking so fresh.
My sister, this season is not just about fasting. It's also about praying, nourishing your soul, and nourishing your body. That is why my family and I always take yummy, nourishing Cadbury Bournvita at Sahur to start our fast, and at Isser every evening when we break our fast, so that we are always nourished with non-stop vitality.
Okay, we're going to leave that ad there. That's awful. It's terrible. Wafa, what's going on?
That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, I feel honored I have shown you the worst ad you've ever seen. Why is that a terrible ad?
It was so fake, and on top of that, again, this is the fine line being crossed really badly. Like they've gone miles in the other direction, and this is why I use Bournvita with my family.
And the rest of the ad is she has a stack of Bournvitas in her car, and it's also the time of sharing, and she gets a massive pack of Bournvita and then gives one to her neighbor.
There was the adhan in the background.
Yeah, call to prayer as well.
Music along with
wow.
it, which was again, it's wrong. Religiously, I feel Bournvita would be trying to be a part of religion or sunnah, you know,
right.
And that's just wrong.
See, what I am thinking now, and I think this is quite important to acknowledge this, is that it's different in the United States or anywhere where you're a minority and a Muslim to embrace anything that feels like it's mainstream, or where you're somewhere where everybody's a Muslim and then it's a different kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
It's almost like the more we start seeing it, at least in the U.S., I feel like, for the most part, at least in my experience, the majority of people have been very positive and been very happy. But you start seeing, you know, this talk of commercialization, just because we're starting to see more and more of it in the U.S. But I guess it all depends on what your definition of commercialization means and if it's a negative or not. For example, if you feel it's not right to sell products or to market to a Muslim consumer, and there's millions of Muslim consumers, then you could tell all the shop owners in Mecca to close up shop during Hajj. Why are they marketing to pilgrims who are coming?
That's
a whole Why are you selling items?
Right.
But you know, it's more of recognizing that there is a demographic, that there are a lot of Muslim consumers who buy things, who buy tea, maybe buy this Bournvita product. I don't know, I've never heard of it.
It's like chocolate. It's like a chocolate milk thing.
Okay,
yeah.
They buy these items, they probably buy them during Ramadan, and you are marketing to this. I think what's important, you know, like organizations like the American Muslim Consumer Conference, what they recognize is that there is a large demographic, and that Muslims, at least Muslims in America as well as around the world, have buying power, and they are a demographic that needn't be marginalized, and that attention should be paid to them. And I think it's starting to come, and I think it's a great thing that it's happening.
Well, Femi, you asked if there's a difference between it being in Western countries and Muslim majority countries, and I say from what I'm seeing online, people say there's definitely a difference. So this is something that someone shared from Karachi, Pakistan. Yusra says, this is brand Ramadan Kareem, a marketable commodity, stuffed camels and all. There's a palm tree, there's lights. So when Femi asked that question, Imam Suhaib, I heard you say exactly. What do you see the differences as being?
Well, I think even on a counter-narrative strategy, when non-Muslims see that Ramadan is being packaged at a large level, much like Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or even Christmas, I think at another level for us, it's an easy way to counter the very negative imagery that you see of Muslims constantly on TV. I mean, I had a friend of mine, Dr. Sherman Jackson, who you may know, whose son, you know, all through high school listened to NPR, and then in his senior year, he asked his father, stop listening to NPR. He said, well, this negative imagery of Muslims is affecting me now. Every morning there's a negative story. So I think it's significant that it allows us to have, if you will, a messaging that normalizes us to people who might not necessarily see us as normal. That is a reality that we have to deal with. So that's very powerful.
Shahid,
can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
The most important thing is it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. So as long as the brands are being safe and doing things that actually go along with the spirituality or the spirit of Ramadan, then I think it's completely fine. Like products here have special offers for Ramadan, like buy one get one free, because like I said, people are entertaining more. There are CSR campaigns, buy this product and we will donate a percentage of it to like the money to the needy. Brands that are throwing iftar for the needy and for the orphans, etc. I think that's completely fine, but again, what's happening, and also I feel, as I can understand from the conversation that's going on, I think the people in the West, they're thinking a lot about it as to, is this okay, isn't this okay, maybe because everyone's eyes are on you and you're supposed to give this perfect image of a Muslim because of all these negative images associated with Muslims these days. But in the Middle East, we don't have that issue. We just live it normally as it is. So I hope I made myself clear.
She's absolutely right, except I'll make 2 points to that. Number one is, I think everybody agrees with what she said. I lived in the Middle East. I studied in Egypt and Azhar for 7 years. But I think that's one of our problems. We want people to see us as being perfect, where, for example, the show All American Muslims. My mother's a non-Muslim. She loved that show. Muslims hated that show. When I asked her why, she said, "You're normal people. You struggle like we struggle. There's always this perfect image of how you are."
So Imam, for our international audience who've never seen this show, do you want to just give us a little backstory?
Yeah, All American Muslim was a show. I forgot what channel it was on.
TLC.
TLC. Thank you. That kind of provided, like the lives of Muslims who lived in the Dearborn, Detroit area. Some of them, struggled with a lot of issues that Muslims might not agree with, and the Muslim community was upset about it at a large level. Not all of them, but when you talk to relatives of converts in particular, they like that show because converts tend to be somewhat ideological. We accept Islam, so that humanized us to them. The last point that I'll make is back on that show. Think about what Lowe's and Kayak did. Lowe's boycotted the show. They pulled their ads basically. Kayak pulled their ads. So if you juxtapose that to what's happening now in Ramadan, like, it's kind of incredible. Like, we're upset that people are advertising for us. We're upset when people don't advertise with us.
Yeah.
You can't have
Which
both.
one would we rather have?
I think what Imam Suhaib is saying is absolutely right, and I think that people, being Muslim and even non-Muslim alike, need to be careful to paint everybody with this broad stroke and assume that all Muslims are exactly the same and everybody practices the same. And I really like that show, All American Muslim, because it showed that range. It showed people just you're human and everybody is different and comes from a different cultural background, and it showed that. And so I think what he's saying is absolutely right.
See, Imam said a great thing.
The Nanos ad is how all of us probably feel. We'll just never say it.
Right.
For me, it will be like watermelon and a glass of water.
I haven't watched this show, so we are done talking about that show, and we're going to talk about Ramadan one more time. So Shahid, I mean, this is really interesting what the Imam said. If we talk about and advertise to Muslims, people get upset. If we don't, people get upset.
Here's the thing.
Where's the middle ground?
Well, the middle ground is this. We're getting to a tipping point where advertisers are looking at the marketplace, the general marketplace, and realizing that they may lose some people by advertising to Muslims, but they have more to gain. And once they hit that tipping point, then they just go all in. And I am a firm believer in the market to actually drive these positive impressions of Muslims. I'm a firm believer in that. I simply don't want to lose our values in that. That's my only caveat. As someone who does marketing to Muslims, and as someone who does, especially during Ramadan.
Interesting. Malika Falau.
Well, picking up on that point is my last thought from the community. Someone wrote a blog post knowing that we were doing this show, and then wrote a blog post specifically for this. Raisa writes, "We can't complain about having communities around us mindless to what happens in Ramadan if we bristle and growl when there's mercantile hype." So because I'd like to end it off on a note that's a little bit happier and more about the spirit of Ramadan. This is from Siddiq. He says, "We don't need brands of Nando's and others for iftar. Some water and dates do the trick, a meal in moderation, and a place to pray."
Okay, won't mention the stream iftar barbecue in that case. All right, Shahed and Wafa, Jumana and Imam, it's been a pleasure having your company. Can I say Ramadan Kareem to you? And thank you for being on the show. Meanwhile, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. So, moving on. On the next show, they travelled from Europe to fight in Syria alongside groups like Islamic State. Now that many are back home, there's some concern about the possible security risks that foreign fighters pose. Join the conversation on the next AJ stream. Until then, I'll see you online.